The Wealthy Life is brought to you by investment dealer Raymond James. Life well planned. See what a Raymond James advisor can do for you.
You're on your dream vacation and you're in a state of bliss. Then you get offered a free car rental in exchange for attending just a short presentation. Yeah, right, nothing's for free. Next thing you know, you're the proud owner of a timeshare, and you get back from holidays and you don't know when you're ever going to get to use it. With me today is Shannon, a savvy businesswoman and mother of 2 great kids. Welcome to the show, Shannon.
Thanks, Sybil.
So do you like to travel with your family?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Where's your favorite place?
We like to go to California because it's warm and sunny and it's a short 3-hour flight with 2 little kids.
Have you ever been to one of these timeshare spiels?
We have. We were at a resort in San Diego and we were offered free tickets to the zoo to attend the timeshare spiel. But more importantly, they offered to babysit our children while we sat and sipped champagne listening to the spiel. So that was the key for us.
Yes, free babysitting.
Exactly.
I'd be all over that too. How long was the presentation?
It was about an hour. They took us on a tour of the resort and then we sat through the presentation and talked with the sales guy.
Now describe the resort to me.
It's beautiful. It's in the desert and there's a bunch of different condos and villas and pools and everything. And during this presentation, they had champagne, corks were flying every time they made a sale. And I'm not sure if it was, part of their pitch or not, but there was a lot of corks going off. And at $21,000 a timeshare, we could not believe it, that people were buying these things.
So I take it you didn't buy one?
We didn't buy one that day, no. We told the sales guy, you're wasting your time, we're not interested at $21,000. I think he dropped the price to around $11,000 and maybe $8,000 was their bottom line. We told them how much we paid for our timeshares, and he actually had to bring his boss over to talk to us and learn about what we had done.
Because he wasn't buying it.
He wasn't buying it. No, we told him the resort, and he couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe the price that we got it for. It was a lot less than $8,000.
Now, did he get mad when you weren't going to buy?
I don't think so, but he quickly moved on to someone else, and there was lots of other people buying.
Well, my husband and I went to one of those timeshare presentations once in Mexico, and they were super nice at the beginning, and they take you into this room after. They show you family photos, their little children that they have to feed these kids. Right. And they were trying to make us feel so sad and just to spend this money. And when we finally said no, because I'm running the numbers and it just didn't make sense for me, he got mad. This boss came over and they got really mad. So I'm glad to hear you didn't have that experience. But I take it you didn't buy it.
We didn't buy it, no.
So what's your big question for me today?
So what do people need to watch for, look out for when they're considering buying a timeshare?
Well, I'm going to answer that question when we return. Find out what the timeshare king has to say after the break. We're back with savvy businesswoman Shannon to find out what questions you need to ask before buying a timeshare. Now, Shannon, we should maybe talk about what a timeshare is, because how do you know what to ask if you don't know what you're buying? A timeshare is not ownership of anything substantial. A timeshare is the right to use a property at certain time periods throughout the year. So you may buy the right to use 1 week at a particular destination every year for the rest of your life. You may buy 2 weeks. And a lot of timeshares are involved in various clubs and point systems, and you can use those points to stay and exchange for stays at different resorts. So you can go back and forth and travel all over the world, but not always. So that's something before you buy a timeshare, you want to make sure you have lots of options. Shannon, I hear your uncle has a funny nickname.
He does. We call him the timeshare king.
Now, why is that?
He's figured out a strategy to buy timeshares that are very low cost with low maintenance fees at a resort that he's never ever going to go to. So he uses those trading systems that you talked about so that he can travel all over the place and never actually go to the resort that.
That's so funny. Like it sounds bizarre that people would buy something that they're never going to use. But he does use it. He uses what it provides, which is just accommodation, essentially.
Yeah, he's basically prepaying for 1 week's vacation, and he can choose to go anywhere in the world that he wants to go.
So why is he the timeshare king? What does he have figured out that's different?
Well, some timeshares I've heard can cost thousands of dollars, like $8,000 or $10,000 or $12,000.
I've heard $25,000 and $50,000.
Wow, yeah. And he pays between $100 and $300 for each of his weeks.
Wow, that's incredibly cheap. Now, what does it cost him every year in annual maintenance? Because there is an annual maintenance that people have to pay, and they don't realize this. When you cough up the money at the beginning to buy a timeshare, that only gives you the right to use it. But there's still annual maintenance fees, and those can be very, very costly. And in a lot of cases, the annual maintenance fees are fairly equivalent to what you would pay to just rent a property without having any commitments and having to go through a crazy point system or trading system. So what does your uncle pay?
Between $100 and $200 a year.
Wow, that's incredibly cheap. Now, if he's going to use this points exchange system, is there an admin cost there too?
There is, yeah. I think it's about $150 to trade in your week and be able to travel wherever you want.
And if he were to upgrade, is there an extra cost for that?
No.
Now, how is he getting around that upgrade? He must be traveling at off-season.
I think so. Our family's pretty flexible, and my uncle's retired, so he's not trying to travel during like peak periods like spring break and Christmas holidays and things like that. So he has a studio is what he owns, a really small place, but he can upgrade to like a large, beautiful 2-bedroom at most resorts.
That's another important question that you want to ask before you buy a timeshare. You want to make sure that you can use it at the time of year you want to use it. So if you're a young family or have a young family, you're probably going to want to travel at peak times like Christmas break, spring break, summer vacation, and that's when it usually costs the most. So for your uncle, it makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. So his total costs every year are actually quite small.
Yeah, they are, and I think he uses the travel credit cards as well. So if you can fly on points and then get a low-cost timeshare, his entire vacation probably costs under $500.
I'm a big fan of the points credit cards, and I really like the ones that offer you companion passes, so you can get your second flight for $99. They're a great way to travel, but warning, only use those credit cards if you're going to pay it off every month. Don't get yourself into crazy debt because it's just not worth it. You don't want to have that hanging over your head. Sounds like you do that well already.
Yes.
Now, time. Another question that people want to make sure they know is how long does this right to use this timeshare last? Is it 20 years? Is it lifetime? Does it pass on future generations? Although that sounds great on the surface, that yes, you can leave this in your estate for your kids, you're leaving your kids a liability. If they can't use it, they still have to pay those annual maintenance fees. Now, the ones you're talking about sound really good, and in that case, I think timeshares do make sense. But the examples that I often see are cases where people spend $25,000 up front and then pay another $1,000 or $1,200 or $1,500 a year in admin fees. That's a lot. If instead they took that money and invested the $25,000 and earned 5% per year, that would generate $1,250 a year of income that they could go and spend on accommodation wherever they want and have no hassles, or use it for something not travel related. Well, Shannon, this has been really informative. I hope I've answered a few more of your questions. Thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks, it's been my pleasure, Sybil.